All right, so I can't believe we're already having the spring coaches meeting. It's actually great, to be honest with you. That means we're getting close to the end of the school year. So I've been starting off this year's meetings with, the agenda has minor changes every season or every year, but some of the same things are always on there, and they're going to stay on there because it seems like every year we have to deal with a situation because somebody didn't follow this map. Okay, so this agenda is like our map here. It's not going to keep you from having issues with parents or kids, but if you follow the map, you will greatly decrease the number of situations that will arise. I promise you. I promise you. If you decide to go rogue and not follow the recommendations, okay, I'm guaranteeing you, you're going to be put in a position where it's going to be regrettable. And then the first thing I'm going to say is, well, why did you do that? We talked about what to do. Why would you do that? All right? So just bear with me as we go through some of these things. All right? I'll first start off by also saying thank you. Thank you for coaching. Okay? Coaching is getting very, very close to what it's like to be an official. It's a thankless job, right? 50% of the people are going to like the call you make. 50% of the people are going to think you don't know what the hell you're doing. All right? That's the landscape we chose. That's the landscape, well, not that we chose, that's the landscape we're in the profession that we chose. And it has changed significantly. So we are very grateful, I am very grateful, that our turnover is not like many of my other colleagues in their situation. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you. Also, if you haven't noticed, if this is the first season that you're coaching, you are now paid in the top third in the county as a coach. Okay, I was adamant about pushing our coaching salaries north, and we got that in negotiations. So, you know, you're in the top 30 of the Oceanside salary scale. All right. So some people realize that, others not so. So you did get a raise. All right. In addition to the nominal raise that you already have built in as per the contract. Just a couple of housekeeping items. The rank 1 window, that's changed actually today. It's not going to open on the 11th. It's going to open on the 18th. All right, for high school. The middle school date and the opening remains the same. All right. You should be having interest meetings. You should be having sign-ups. You need to create your roster in rank 1. It helps the nurses clear your kids. Do not send your kids down to ask why they're not clear. They're either green or they're not. Okay? If they're not green, then they can't try out. Can't have people trying out that aren't clear. Because we've run into some significant issues as of late where we have kids who were never cleared from a concussion trying out for a sports team. Can't happen. Puts yourself, puts me, puts the district in a position where, you know, we live in a litigious society these days, okay? So please be mindful of that, but don't send kids to the nurse's office if they clearly didn't do something. You can actually see yourself just by pulling up the kid's name in the rank 1 app, what they're missing. They don't have to go to the nurse for that, all right? Staying on the nurse, if you have yet to be EpiPen or glucagon trained, you need to go see your nurse in the building that you teach at to do so. It takes about 10 minutes. Email them, ask them a time that's conducive for their schedule and your schedule, and go down there and get that taken care of. That's got to be done at least the week prior to the start of the season. All right, so please don't wait till the last minute. We have a coach's handbook. We no longer print it. It's virtual. You'll get an email from me after this meeting with a link to the handbook, and you're going to have to sign off. Okay? In addition, if you haven't done it, you'll have to watch the DASA video that you're also going to have to sign off on. Okay? Those things are required. All right? They're required by the district, so please make sure you take care of that. In the handbook, there are supervisor responsibilities, okay? Even though you coach, you may also supervise. But even if you don't supervise, take a look at those supervisor responsibilities, okay? There's also emergency action plans for each building in the event that there's an emergency situation outside of the facility and you happen to be out at practice or a game, and the steps that you have to take in the event that emergency action plan has to go into place. Please familiarize yourself with those plans for your building, okay? Don't just gloss it over. Again, anything can happen, right? Just 2 weeks ago, we had the swatting incident at Newbridge Road. And for those of you who don't know, okay, they went in that building, full tactical response, guns out. Even though it was later to be determined a hoax, but like, it can happen at any time. All right, so please make yourself aware of that stuff. It's in the handbook. So there's also security protocols for you that are also in that handbook that you need to make yourself aware of in the event you have a crazy parent who approaches you or tries to get physical with you, or whatever the case may be. All right? There's steps that you need to take. And it needs to be done quickly so that I then and the building administrative staff can also go into the next steps of how we're going to address that parent. All right? I don't have a problem dealing with parents. I'm not good at a lot of things. I happen to think I'm very good dealing with jerk parents, and I don't have a problem banning parents. But when something like that happens, you got to follow those steps. We can't solve a problem that we don't know exists, right? So please familiarize yourself with that. We're going to get back to the Varsity Coaches Council, but it's probably not going to be this year. It'll be probably after we get started next year. I did get some questions about that, but we're going to put that back in place sometime early next year. I just wanted to remind everybody of that. We have a new scheduling system. It's called League Minder. If Kim has put all of you in there, all coaches are in League Minder. You have a username and password, and I'll push that information out to you if you have not accessed that, and this is the first season you're coaching. Okay, so you can familiarize yourself with League Minder. So you guys know how we do cuts here. The only thing I want to remind you about cuts is don't go rogue in terms of if you decide, because you have large numbers of students trying out, that you're not going to have individual face-to-face meetings when you make cuts, then use the form that we have on the website. Everybody should be using the same thing. All right? We've been, dare I say it, if I get less than one hand phone calls about cuts, that's a tribute to you guys and how you're handling those things, but the community knows that how we handle it now. And they talk, and they post about it. Okay, so they know if they call me, the first thing I'm going to say is, did they speak to the coach? But part of that is because everybody's doing the same thing when it comes to cuts. So continue to do that. Use the form, it's a district form, use that and only that. All right, I prefer still that if you can, you meet face-to-face with a kid, but I understand in some sports you have 80 kids trying out, right? So that can't be done. You got to have your meetings, folks. You got to have your meetings. All right? Anytime I have an issue, regardless of season, the first question I ask of the coach is, well, did you discuss it in your preseason meeting? And more often than not, they forgot to have the meeting, and the season passed them by. Okay, that's a no-no. All you're doing is setting yourself up to deal with nonsense that comes with difficult parents. And they're everywhere. Okay? Parents are like children. They need to be given boundaries And your preseason meeting is an opportunity for you to give them boundaries. So don't just have the meeting to check the box. Go into your meeting, take this agenda. This is why I send you the agenda. And use the items that are on here. Okay, don't reinvent the wheel. And then add whatever you need to add from your perspective as the coach for your team. Okay? But to not have a preseason meeting is counterproductive. Okay? Not to mention, like, it angers people who have to then clean up that mess. So please have your meetings. Take attendance and give that attendance to the coordinator in the building that you're coaching. For those of you who coach at the high school, at the varsity level, and even to some degree the JV level, please consider having in-season meetings with your kids, right? You may have them at the beginning of the year when you identify roles, but kids change, right? Kids who you think that we're going to perform at a certain level don't meet that standard maybe, and kids that you had pegged at a different level are surpassing what your expectations. So that's an opportunity for you to have FaceTime with kids so that kids go home, and if they were playing, but then all of a sudden are seeing their minutes decrease, when the parent asks them, well, why aren't you playing? They don't just shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know. They can say, well, coach pulled me in, he or she said X, Y, and Z, and so forth and so on, right? So please consider doing that. Yes, it takes a little time. I get it, right? We're all busy. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's me, but it's always us. So like, if all of us are doing and saying the same things, we can eliminate a lot of the nonsense that happens. Won't eliminate all of it, but we can eliminate a lot of it, right? So please consider doing those things. We are obligated to meet with parents. Yes. Part of the deal when you become an educator, a coach. But we are not obligated to do it on anybody else's terms other than ours. And here in Belmore Merrick, when we meet with parents in athletics, we meet with the kids present. If a parent says no, then you simply say, then we're not meeting. They can call me. Okay? We've been doing it. This is my 9th year. And we started this my 3rd year as an AD. And if I don't do anything else in my career, that'll be the best thing I've ever implemented here. Okay? It will decrease the number of meetings that you have. But if you don't say it, or you don't do it, you're going to have parents that are going to meet all the time. Don't tell Lucas that we're having this meeting. He'd be mortified. We don't do that. You can't have it both ways. Coaching is already difficult enough. Okay, so that's your answer. Anybody has a problem with it, 992-1048. I'll be more than happy to discuss our practices here in Belmore Merrick. Okay? But again, every year somebody does that, and then it becomes a he said, she said. Right? And then I get called at the 11th hour to clean up a mess. I'm not John Wick. I just want to come here, do my job, help you guys out as much as possible, and not deal with unnecessary nonsense. So please do not meet with parents unless their kids are there. Right? All right. I want to remind everybody, every team here is in a 3-year cycle for new uniforms, which is almost unheard of. Max 4, depending on the situation in your building. Okay? But I don't have an unlimited budget. So you have a responsibility of collecting your uniforms. And every season, every year, we have coaches who do not do that. Okay? That's unacceptable. All right? Collect your uniforms. Have them met. There's something on the website for you to even use. I put it up there years ago. All right? Your last home game, and you have games after, you have an away game after that, tell the kids, after the game, I'm collecting your home uniform. Don't worry about it being used and dirty. We send them out to be laundered anyway. If your last game is a home game, then tell them, after the game, I'm collecting the uniform. Don't let them leave with it. They're going to want to keep it. That's what kids do. Collect it. That's your responsibility. Okay? Next year, we will have laundry being done on site here. Our prep kids are going to be doing the laundry for athletics. So I'm purchasing 2 industrial size washer and dryers. It's going to be part of their job training here. So, it's a way for them to get some training. It helps us. I'll still have a PO from ICASA, but we're going to roll that out in the fall. So we're cautiously optimistic that, you can call me and say, hey, Eric, do you mind if I send you the football jerseys and have them washed? That's something we can do here on site now. Okay, so we're excited about that. The next couple things. Please stay the message. Please be consistent. Okay, don't have different rules for different kids. Okay, all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure. Can't tell you how many times when we do have a problem, I'm like, well, why would you do that? Why would you have a different set of rules for 2 different kids on your team? Be consistent, please. Stay the message, okay? We talk about that universal language at your meeting. Talk about our 24-hour rule. Talk about the fact that we don't discuss playing time. Part of our job as teachers and coaches is to empower our kids to advocate on their own behalf. This is a good way to do it in athletics. But you need to discuss that with your parents. You have to. Can't be afraid to discuss that, okay? I don't like captains. I say it every meeting. You guys know that. If you decide to have team captains, because I don't micromanage that piece, but if you do, then you have a responsibility to teach these kids what their role is as a captain. They're not adults, right? We're trying to get them to come to school on a regular basis and hand in their work on time and all those things. They don't know how to be an adult. So you have a responsibility, if you're assigning captaincy, that you teach these kids and you're selecting the right kid, okay? Stay on top of your paperwork. For varsity coaches, you're expected to go to those meetings, your monthly meetings. Make sure you're there. Supervise the locker rooms. Just because practice is over doesn't mean you get in your car and you try to beat the buses out or you try to beat the traffic on the LIE or whatever parkway you use to get home. You need to stay there and make sure the kids are out. In the last calendar year alone, we've had 3 significant incidents in locker rooms, and the coaches were nowhere to be found. Okay? We're lucky. We have good kids. We don't have axe murderers here in Belmar Merrick. Okay? But it's a good way to put yourself in jeopardy of losing a job. God forbid something goes really wrong. Make sure you're supervising your kids. No excuses. All right? Canceling games now is almost impossible. BOCES, we're trying to not play on April 23rd because the first day of Passover, and we're being told no. Okay, so you need to look at your schedule, especially those of you who are at the high school level, and if you didn't do that already, and there's a conflict, you need to figure it out. Because their chances of them changing that are slim to none. We do not have officials. Doesn't matter what sport. For a sport like lacrosse, you're now playing double headers. There's no more home and away. So your JV plays at 9, you can expect to play at noon. Same crew. Okay? It's real. The problem is real in terms of officials. So rescheduling contests is not going to happen. So you need to go through your schedules. You need to make sure that everything's on point. Okay? We can maybe change a time if the officials are willing to do that. But Grace and Nick at BOCES, they're saying no to everything. Okay? So middle school sports, we'll be lucky if we have officials, the second third of the season. Right? There's just not enough people. And that the struggle is real, and I don't know if it's going to change. I don't know what's going on, but that's what we're dealing with right now. So please make sure you're mindful of that. All the high school campuses we're now a huddle district. So all those campuses have huddle cameras. The links are up on the district website. So when you have your preseason meeting, you can tell parents that they can go on the district website, click on Calhoun High School live streaming, and anything that's scheduled in the gym will be on. Anything that's scheduled in the outside field will be on. Okay, and the quality is far superior than the NFHS cameras. We took care of the blackout dates for SAT and ACT, but just double check for those of you who are at the high schools. We're still doing the baseline checks. One of the things we're finding is that some of our, veteran coaches, so to speak, are giving some of our trainers a hard time. Guys, whether we agree or disagree with the trainer is irrelevant. If they say a kid can't play, the kid can't play. You're not fighting with them. You're not saying, what if? If they say they can't play, they can't play. That's it. It's non-negotiable. Okay? So please don't make it difficult for them. Social media, I say it every time. If you have a team page, you better make sure that you're moderating that team page. Okay? Please be careful about texting with kids from your personal phone. Use Rank 1, use Remind. Okay? Don't put yourself in a spot where you got to wiggle your way out of unnecessarily. Okay? I'm only telling you this because things have happened and coaches have lost their jobs because of it. Don't use your cell phones. Just don't. It's not worth it. Okay? We don't use same thing. Everybody fundraises. We're not using Venmo to fundraise. Okay? The greatest parent on the planet sometimes loses sight of reality when it comes to money. So don't put yourself in a situation. Okay? Don't put yourself in a situation. So everything is done on the up. All right? Do it the right way. Geo account, whatever that other, what is it, that Snap thing that everyone's using now. Use that, whatever the case may be. And if you are, remember, you're fundraising for things to supplement the experience of athletics in Belmore, Maryland. Okay? You should not be in your communication. It shouldn't be for equipment, uniforms. That's not what you're fundraising for. You're fundraising to supplement the experience in whatever sport you're fundraising for. That's it. Okay? We buy uniforms. That's why they pay taxes. Right? I get those phone calls, and parents go crazy. What do you mean we have to fundraise for uniforms and equipment? Then I got to talk my way out of that. So please, make sure it's clear. We have the JV 8 sports guidelines. It's a board policy. 8th graders can only play JV sports if there are no cuts. If you're having a cut at the JV level, then an 8th grader can't play on that team. They can only play on varsity. Okay? That's a board policy. So if you have any questions with that, please contact me directly. Again, supervision is non-negotiable. Your athletic paperwork has to be submitted for approval, whether, if it's a track meet or a tournament or whatever the case may be, 2 weeks prior to the date of the event. If you don't do that, it becomes a confirming purchase order. Then I get in trouble and the auditors get upset, okay? If it's not 2 weeks, we're going to say, you can do it, but you got to pay for it out of your own pocket and then submit for reimbursement. And that's going to take you about 60 days to get your money back. Okay, so adhere to that 2-week window. If not, absolutely you can go, but you're paying the fee. And then you submit for reimbursement. All right? We have a couple new requirements for those of you who may be considering using a coach bus. All right? As a result of the unfortunate tragedy at Farmingdale, everything coach bus related has increased tenfold, including the costs associated with a coach bus. For instance, the hockey team went to the state tournament 2 years ago. The bus cost them $6,000. They're probably going to make the state tournament this year. They're getting quotes of $12,000. Okay? So it's doubled in 2 years because of the insurance requirements that used to be unmandated, right, are now mandated. They used to be recommendations, they're now mandated and required. So that's changed the game. We have a coach bus approved vendor list. Okay? If you're going to be using a coach bus, you email me or your coordinator. We will send you that list. You call, you get all the information that you want, then you have to email that to Ann Caprat in transportation and copy me. They then have to vet the company, make sure they meet all the insurance requirements and all that stuff. That's not your job. Your job is to tell transportation that this is the company that you want off the approved vendor list, and then they do everything else. Okay? If you show up with a coach bus and you didn't do that, you're not going. Because there's another piece to that. That bus now is required to do a checklist when the bus arrives on site. They got to check the turn signals, the tire tracks, the tire traction, windshield wipers, all that kind of stuff. You have to have a certification to do that. It's crazy. But you guys need to know this and what your role is in the whole process. Okay, so if anybody has any questions about that, just reach out to me directly, please. When you have a kid that gets injured, and I'm not talking about someone who needs a Band-Aid. I'm talking when there's a significant injury. This is what we do in Belmore Merrick.
I found this on the web.
Thank you, Siri. We have trainers in every building. So the trainer usually reaches out to me, right? But for whatever reason, you guys always let me know about the significant injury. I then let Mr. Harrington know, and the building principal know, and the coordinator in your building, okay? You have to call to follow up the next day. That's what we do here. Hey, how's Lucas doing? You know, what did the doctor say? Whatever the case may be, right? If there's a significant injury, that's what you do. Because I also call, the principal calls, and Mike Harrington calls. We all call. If we call and you didn't as a coach, it doesn't look good for you. So if you have a significant injury, you're to let me know. I take care of everything else. And then you're responsible for calling up and checking up on the kid. Don't just call the kid. Call the parents. Okay? I have a 16-year-old son. I'm lucky if I get yes. How's school? Like, they're not telling the parents that they spoke to the coach. Call the parents. All right? That's important. Please make sure you do that. We have a new APP process, if you don't know. Okay? I put an email out every season. Usually you are copied on that. Okay? It goes out through the principals to their particular school community. Parents in Merrick, or at Merrick Avenue and Grand Avenue, they're not dictating who's playing at the high school. Our coaches do that. Okay? Again, parents don't dictate, you determine it, which means you got to do a little work. Okay? If a parent reaches out to you, you got to have a conversation. If you're having an open gym, then you invite the kid. And then you follow up with the parent accordingly. Man, I don't think that they're going to, you know what, my numbers are this, I don't think they're going to, it's not going to work. Or, hey, I see them being a contributor. Yes, I want them to try out. Then your next step is to fill out the Google document that I'll be sending you as well, and you complete that. You're going to complete that, and then you have to notify the coordinator in the middle school about the kid trying out for you. If you don't, then they fall through the cracks in terms of getting approved by the nurse at the middle school. So your role is, one, to identify the kid, which means you gotta have contact with the parent and you gotta see them in some capacity. Fill out the form that I send you and email the coordinator. It's either Ben Fisher at Grand or Pat Fallon at Merrick Avenue, okay? And let them know that Lucas Caballero is gonna be trying out for baseball. And then they'll be able to make sure that the paperwork is done at the middle school level. And then what I do is, I think it's March 6th, I send another email out, and I have a mandatory meeting for the parents and the kids. And then I discuss all the do's and all the don'ts for a middle school kid playing up at the high school level. So basically, I'm taking that all off of your table, and I'm going to address that. Your role is just identifying the kid, talking to the parent, completing the form, which takes 2 minutes, and emailing the middle school athletic coordinator. And then I'll take care of everything else from there. Does anybody have any questions with that if you're at the high school? Any questions? Okay. Last thing. No cell phones on the bench. And you need to talk to your kids about cell phones on the bus and in the locker rooms. I had a fight on a bus this year. Cell phone related. Girls swimming. Okay? So, you need to be cognizant of cell phones. All right? You should be having that discussion with your teams regularly about using cell phones in the locker room, using cell phones on the bus. They should not have their cell phones out on the bench. They can have them in their bag behind the bench. They should not be out. Okay? And when you have your parent meetings, you should be discussing that. Like I have a parent that was texting from the stands to the kid why the kid wasn't playing. And the kid's on the phone, and the coach doesn't even recognize that the kid's on the phone. Like, we can't have that, right? We're just setting ourselves up for failure, right? For nonsense. So you need to constantly say the message, say that at your preseason parent meeting, say it with your teams regularly, please, all right? I don't have anything else on my agenda. You guys, anybody have any questions? Questions? Does anybody not have an ID? All right, so stay here so we can get you an ID. Make sure you get trained in EpiPen, please, glucagon, sooner rather than later. For those of you who haven't inventoried your uniforms, touch base with your coordinator. Go through your uniform bin. Okay, don't wait till the last minute and say, "Hey, I can't find my pants." Okay, I'm not telling you guys anything that hasn't happened. All right, so please do that now. Okay, any questions? Any questions? All right, awesome. Thanks again for coaching. Appreciate you guys all. Have a great day.